This is the intro music, in case you didn't know. Yo, welcome everyone to another episode, an extremely special episode of Weird Growth, the podcast where we hear the weird, strange and often unpredictable founder stories that founders often find themselves on. We're doing something a little bit nuts tonight, obviously. We're doing what is normally in a private padded cell room in front of a group of 40 or 50 people. Thank you all for being here. It's great to see all your smiling faces. This is really cool. And we are also here at Terrace Loft. So thank you to the Terrace Loft guys. As Jack said, like, super cool space. We're in a secret warehouse location here in East Perth. It's not so secret now, it's Terrace Loft is what it's called, and you guys are all here, so thank you. Jack, thank you for pulling this together. Jack is our amazing producer of Weird Growth, and we're up to 21 episodes as of today, so well done, mate. You've pulled this together and you've just done a superb job and organised this, so thank you very much. And even more importantly, we have two amazing guests on the couch here tonight. We have Elizabeth Knight, founder of Purposeful. Round of applause, come on, we've got a live audience, may as well use it, right? Thank you for being here, Liz. And we have Nick Hudson, founder of the Push-Up Challenge, who has just recently raised $9 million this year alone for better mental health, and probably made a few sore pecs around the nation.
Many small arms, many sore pecs.
Thank you so much for being here, guys. So normally what I could introduce you, but you're going to do a better job of introducing yourselves. So, Elizabeth, on the spot, how would you introduce yourself to someone you've never met before?
Hello. Well,
Thank
my name is Elizabeth. I am the founder of Purposeful, so it's a startup helping students find direction in their life after school. But my journey, really, what I do is not really as important as why I do it. And I guess began Purposeful when I graduated from high school, and on paper had done pretty well. I had shiny ATAR and a scholarship to uni, but I had no idea what I wanted to do, as do most of us, right? Actually, more than 50% of young people across Australia. So I really wanted to solve that problem and to help young people graduate with more confidence.
We are massive fans of what you were doing at Purposeful, and we hear all about that.
Oh,
thank you for being here and sharing that. And Nick, what about yourself? How would you introduce yourself?
How would I introduce myself? I'm just a suburban boy. Grew up in Melbourne, moved to Perth, saw the light. I decided to, yes, I think it's worth it.
There's some Victorians in here.
It's a bit cold out there.
How did they get past the door?
I founded the Push-Up Challenge about 5 years ago in a previous incarnation, and I've been passionate about mental health for maybe about 10 years now, since learning about my dad's struggles with depression. And after having some open heart surgery about 3 or 4 years ago, I decided to boost the Push-Up Challenge to turn it into what it is today, which is something that I wouldn't even have dreamed of in terms of how big and influential it's become in the mental health space. So I'm just a guy with a laptop and a dream. How corny is that, huh? But I'm keen to do something in the mental health space. Keen to help people push for better mental health.
Thanks, mate. And we've worked on a few projects. Yes. We will get into everyone's stories and backstories in a little while. But just for now, before we get stuck in, I have a pop quiz for each of you.
No.
Oh my gosh!
Well, literally the hot seat. If you were to start a new business today, what would it be, and who would you be helping?
I actually already have like a backup list of
of course you
quite
do.
a few things just in case for my future self. One would definitely be in women's health, because I just know from, I haven't worked on the elevator pitch for this one as well, but for so many young women in particular, I think just women's health in general is really under-researched and understood space, and I think, there's a lot that could be improved there. So
Yeah. Nick, you've been given 30 seconds to think about this question.
I've got that advantage, but it hasn't done me any good. If I was to, I'm obviously passionate about the mental health space, and I see a few opportunities in that area still for improving things, particularly in workplaces across Australia. So I've got some irons in the fire for the next thing in mental health. If I wasn't to be in mental health, I'd be trying to get into whatever Elon Musk is getting into next. So that guy seems to be ahead of the curve and has got some pretty interesting ideas about AI, which I think is quite interesting. Maybe beyond my education levels, but something would be very interesting to get into nonetheless.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. Great answers. Nick, we have a little bit of history, as I alluded to, a bit of history, including a few startup weekend related sort of escapades. What do you remember most about those? What comes to mind?
Well, mate, Textie, come on.
Tell us about Textie, please.
Textie, has anyone here heard of Textie? I expect no hands to be raised right now. Got a couple of super fans. Thank you.
A few OGs over there.
So Textie, how many years ago was this? Maybe
I believe it was 2016, 2015, perhaps. Okay.
So we had an idea.
You had an idea.
Sorry, I had an idea.
I got dragged along in the
I was like, Cam, come along to this, and Cam reluctantly came along. Anyhow, we have you ever had that experience where this isn't a sell, by the way. I'm just telling the story. Have you ever had that experience where someone texts you and you're not quite sure how to respond? You know, that question at the start, like the early stages of a relationship that says, what are we? And you're like, I don't know. I don't know how to respond to this. So what I identified was there's a problem with with understanding how to reply to people's texts in certain circumstances. And I thought, well, can we outsource the replies to texts?
Just put it out to the crowd and see what happens.
Put it out to the crowd, put it out to the masses and see what happens. And so I had this idea. I was telling Cam about it, and I think Cam, when he heard me talking about it, he assumed as if I was talking about a service, a product that already existed. And then later on in the conversation, I was like, no, Cam, this is what I want to do. This is what we want. He's like, oh, that doesn't exist? I'm like, no. He's like, oh, yeah, let's do that.
And so with Startup Weekend, you get to come along on a Friday afternoon, evening, pitch all these random ideas to a room full of people, and then hopefully some of them are interested enough that they're going to help you build it. So you form teams to build over the course of a weekend a startup.
Yeah, so you've
got, put it out to the market and see what happens.
So you got a weekend to make this happen. So you got 48 hours to get it out into the market and see if this thing takes hold. And usually these startup weekends, of which there have been many, they might get like a couple of sales, that the thing that the teams develop. They might get a couple of sales, a bit of interest, but Textie went a bit further than that.
Did it ever? Liz, you've been to a few startup weekends in your time?
I actually haven't.
Oh, you haven't been to a hackathon?
I know. I knew you were going to react that way.
You've got to go to the next one, and so do all of you, because it's the best fun.
It's a lot of fun.
It's amazing how much you can achieve in the course of a weekend. What did we achieve in the course of a weekend?
Well, we achieved the worst website you've ever seen. But it got traction, we had a couple of nibbles. We managed to get something up pretty quick. We had a developer.
It worked.
Our team.
It worked. People could post their messages up, and they were getting responses.
Yes,
might have been from us, but they were getting responses.
Lots of responses, and to the point where, we got our thing up pretty quickly. Our website up within maybe a day or thereabouts.
By Saturday evening, it was up and running.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so come Sunday, the traction was starting to build. And Sunday night, they have this sort of, what do you call it, this judging
pitch
sort
night,
process.
So you pitch it to a panel of investors, what you've created over the course of the weekend. Yeah.
So we're pitching it to investors, and our product, Textie, had done pretty well at that point. In fact, it was that hockey curve thing. It was just starting at this point here. And we had all these cool numbers to put to the investors, and the numbers continued to grow during our pitch, to the point where we're like, please don't let our pitch end, because it just kept on going up exponentially at that point. It was a very exciting. It
was,
night.
Yeah. And so eventually, what happened is it was picked up by this really cool site called Product Hunt. It was on Hacker News. And by the following weekend, a week later, it had been on MTV.com, New York Post, like Daily Mail, and it had gone, I guess, viral.
I'd call it viral.
It had gone around the world, and then the West picked it up. The West Australian newspaper picked it up the week after they discovered that it's actually something cool had started here in WA.
That was probably the pinnacle of my career, because we had an article in the West Australian, and right next to that article was an article about billionaires strike it rich in Western Australia. So if you glanced at it quite quickly, you could have mistaken that Cam and I had become billionaires quite quickly.
We are getting some wild weather outside. This is the joy of live podcasting, but I don't think are we getting much feedback in the headphones? We're good. Yeah, awesome. So if you're listening to this podcast in 3 years' time, just know it was raining really heavily outside. Elizabeth.
Hello.
You are on a mission to help young people.
Yes.
Like yourself. I know this is something that you've experienced before, getting to the end of high school, not knowing what you're going to do with your life. Tell us about how that felt, how other people feel when they're going through that, and what you've done to address that.
Yeah, I think...
And speak quite loudly into the microphone.
I think what's really profound about that problem, right, is that even though as you get older it kind of becomes like this smaller issue and it maybe gets further and further away from you, at that time it's maybe like the biggest problem you've experienced, right? When you're 17, like what is the meaning of life? Like who am I? Like those are the things that so many people grapple with.
How do I respond to text messages?
Exactly, that too. There's like two extremes.
Yeah.
And when I was experiencing that problem, and certainly still to this day, I think there's still so much pressure to have an answer. And almost a lot of people, often people that care about you, who ask, what do you want to do? Like, what are you going to do when you leave school? Are really derailing you at times, because if you don't have an answer, then you kind of feel like a fraud or a failure. And I know so many people, including myself, who would start to like make up an answer just to appease people, because it's just kind of an expectation that suddenly you have it all worked out when you graduate or even in year 10. And so I was like really interested in that problem and the experience that I had. And the weird or wacky part of my growth story, I guess, is where the initial idea came from, was this leadership conference that I went on when I was in high school in LA, and which was, transformational enough when you're 15 and you've never been to America. But
huge.
Essentially it was this sort of Tony Robbins style leadership conference for high school kids, which is just next level kind of extra. And
Kai, who works,
yes.
I know that's the one you've been on too. Yeah, wow.
Yes. So you get there and like you're 15 and you're surrounded by like, people that it's almost like a cult. It feels like it's like super high energy. Like everyone's dancing.
That explains a lot.
You're like, what have I got myself into? But the guy that started it is like a celebrity dentist. He was one of the dentists on, Extreme Makeover and The Doctors. Like that was his gig. And so he would get all his A-lister clients to just, he cleans their teeth, like, or does their cosmetic surgery, to come in and talk about their stories of success. And by the end of the week, you're kind of like, yeah, I've heard this story before, like, we get it. And then you have that light bulb moment of, like, it's because all successful people do similar things, and there's actually a way to be in the driver's seat of your life and take control of your future. And that sort of stuck with me. So I knew that in the back of my mind that there was another way of thinking about this, and wanted to bring that into something more scalable and sustainable, because obviously we don't all have A-lister friends or clients.
Yeah, and so you came back from that into high school, went into uni?
Yes, yeah, my first year uni.
And how did that sort of catalyse Purposeful?
Yeah, it catalysed it, honestly, and I think probably some of what you might talk about a bit later, Nick, around, I was super burnt out because I'd worked really hard and kind of achieved this almost like epitome of success in high school.
Yeah.
And then
you coached for 12 years of your life to achieve this thing.
And then people are like, oh my God, it will be amazing. And then you get there and you're kind of like, what next? What now?
Yeah.
And I was really exhausted. And so I actually was forced to spend more time with myself and getting to know who I was. I stumbled into entrepreneurship, as many people do, and was quite struck at the time by this idea that you could create your own job. You didn't have to choose a job. So that really sparked my passion for that space, and got involved with helping other young people to become entrepreneurs. And then once I'd plucked up enough confidence and courage, took the leap myself. And now I'd sort of feel as though I'm a bit unemployable, because I don't know if I could work for someone else in the same way after tasting the entrepreneurial life. yeah.
Definitely feel you there, yeah. And you were involved in Bloom as
Yes,
well, which
yeah.
is that sort of UWA entrepreneur space.
Yeah.
There's some really incredible, sort of inspirational people who have come out of there, including the team, and one of the former team members are here tonight that we've worked with for a long time, and it's just such a, energizing space and community to be involved in. To see young people who are in their late teens, early 20s, basically, building businesses.
Yeah, now it's actually considered like a career path, which even when I
So it should
started, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, like we were trying to sell people on that idea still. And now you get, high school kids coming through who know that that's an option for them. So that's super exciting. I think we're only just starting to see the impact of that ripple effect that's, spreading.
So good. Push-up challenge.
Yeah.
To date, people have done 173 million push-ups, I believe. Is that an up-to-date figure?
It's a few more than that now. So this year alone, it was 241 million push-ups.
That's very out of date.
It's very out. Yeah,
How do you get that many people to do that many push-ups? That is incredible.
It's actually a fair bit of effort. So 241 million push-ups is so it was a bit of a vanity metric. It's the equivalent of about 10 push-ups per Australian. So I like to think that our event improved the health of the average Australian by 10 push-ups. Nice. I'm not sure if I can say that, but that's one way of looking at it. So that's this year. I mean, it's taken a few years to get to that point. So last year, I think we're at about 140 million push-ups for the year.
Okay, that's probably where I got that number.
That's probably that's perhaps where you got it.
So what is it about the push-up kind of? I guess it's kind of a gimmick, but it's a thing which people can engage in. What is it about that has captured everyone's imaginations?
Yeah, sure. So I think it's just a fun thing to do. So when we started it like 5 years ago, we just started it to get fit. It was July back in 2017, and we realised our beach bodies weren't quite ready for summer. And so myself and a few mates challenged ourselves to do a lot of push-ups in a month. And what we found over that month is it kept us connected. So every day we were checking in with our mates. So, how are you going with your push-ups? How many have you done today? And we found this connection that we hadn't had sort of excuse to have without the push-up challenge. And so we just grew it from there.
So it started group of mates, surf club, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then it evolved a little bit further a couple of years along, and it wasn't always called the push-up challenge.
No, that's right. So it started off as something else. It started off being aligned with the Tour de France in terms of the push-ups they did.
Are you being careful with your language?
I'm trying to be careful. So it's... I remember when we were trying to market it, and when we were aligning it with the Tour de France, I thought, well, how do I get this event out there? And I went to all these bike shops. So who's going to be interested in Tour de France and doing push-ups? So what we did is we married up the number of kilometres ridden in a day during the Tour de France, the number of push-ups that someone had to do.
So you do one push-up per K?
Yeah, it's one push-up per K. And so does everyone, so Tour de France, so it's a 20-odd day event. And that worked, that was an okay concept. But I thought, well, how do we grow this? And so I went to all these bike shops, and I emailed all these bike shops and said, oh, hey, do you want to be involved? And they were like, no. Why do we want to be involved in that?
We're into cycling, not push-ups.
We're cyclists. We're interested in our legs, not our arms, you idiot. I was like, okay, well, maybe that's not the answer then. And so we're getting a bit of pushback from the cycling community, and probably the main bit of pushback was from Tour de France themselves, who did not like the concept at all. And sent us a very sternly worded letter saying, please don't do that anymore.
But they wouldn't have sent that if it was just you ringing up a few bike shops. Like there was quite a bit of traction by this point, right? There was quite a few people participating in Tour to Push Up. I can say it. You probably can't.
Yeah, no, call it what it was. So
thanks to the lawyers.
So yeah, there's quite a few people participating, but we think we'd reached its limit.
Yep.
And so we decided, well, hang on a sec. This is about mental health, right? And I've got a personal interest in mental health. So all right, well, how do we turn it to be more mental health focused at its core? And so we decided to pivot to a different design, which was quite risky. We thought it was quite morbid at the time. So we changed it so that the target number of push-ups was the number of people who took their own lives the previous year in Australia. And when we thought about this idea, we thought, hang on a minute, that's a really dark topic. And, who's going to want to talk about that? That's not a fun. We were a fun event, have some fun with your mates, do some push-ups, get a little bit silly with it. We thought, well, how do we couple that with the very sort of serious topic of mental health and suicide in particular? And so that was a massive jump.
Yeah,
it was a massive pivot for us, and we thought, well, is this going to take on? And with the initial marketing and all that, it was looking grim there for a while. I was like, well, this is a bad idea.
But how were you reaching people? How were you selling the message of what you were doing with the push-up challenge, and how were you encouraging people to blast the crikey out of their poor old pecs and do a couple of hundred push-ups a day?
Yeah, so I guess there's a few audiences who are interested in the concept. You've got those that are interested in mental health, those interested in fitness, and those interested in just having a bit of fun, and finding that sort of intersection on the Venn diagram took a bit of A/B testing in with the masses, but I guess eventually we got there. It started with us, basically knocking on doors, so going to gyms and saying, "Oh, hey, do you want to be part of this?" So very much, one-to-one focus to build it from there, and then just grew it from there.
Cool. We'll come back to that because there's some really interesting stuff which I think people would really like to hear about how you took that to become a national hit, really. So thank you, mate. Elizabeth, you told me you're being accelerated at the moment. So you're going through the Plus 8 program, which is a really cool accelerator program. I think it's in its 4th or 5th year now here in Perth. It takes startups and helps them go from basically 1 to $1 million, hopefully.
Hopefully.
How are you finding that process at the moment, and tell everyone what's involved?
Yeah, so I guess for most accelerators, really the concept is that you get maybe money and mentoring and support and just all the things that maybe you don't have as a solo founder on your own, to accelerate your growth and get you to that next stage much faster, which it definitely is doing. I think the brilliant part about it is that for myself, in the beginning of my journey, I was like a solo founder and didn't have a team, and particularly in COVID. So I basically graduated and then at the start of last year, and then was in isolation starting this business on my own, and that was definitely challenging. So it's awesome to be part of a community of other people that are solving these weird and diverse and wacky kind of problems and have such amazing experiences. So yeah, that's been awesome.
Yeah, I mean the amazing thing about Plus 8 is this awesome community which wraps around the startup founders and gives you every kind of resource imaginable to be able to take things to the next level. And people have been there, done that. It's a really cool thing to see. And from just the few months that you've been involved in that, I've seen your business sort of take on a whole new sort of level as well. You're a fellow podcast host too. What led you to that, and what benefits are you seeing from, and what is it called again?
It's called The Lost Button.
The Lost Button.
I think I have to explain this story because it is a bit of a weird growth story too. So I guess when I started trying to solve this problem for young people, I was really just, as many entrepreneurs are, trying to see what sticks, right? And coming up with so many different potential solutions that might help to push the needle and actually impact people. And one of those sort of random ideas was the lost button, what if when you were feeling lost, there was this button that you could hit and it would help you get unstuck, and like a magic sort of solution. And so I decided to try and build that, and as many ideas are in the beginnings, was very much a Wizard of Oz solution. So, send us any problem or question you have about your future, and we'll send you like a personalized set of ideas to help you get unstuck fast.
Right, and you look behind the curtain.
And it's like me, like
wizard.
frantically, like Ask Anonymous style, like answering all these people's questions. Yep. But it was actually brilliant because what I found really difficult was that people didn't want to talk about this problem, particularly young people who were my friends, maybe, who I could tell were really lost and I could maybe help, but there's sort of this shame associated with like not knowing what you want to do. But with this idea, it actually let people open up and helped me to gain incredible insights into like this really diverse data set now of problems that people have. And at first I thought this is something that people might spam and, use in a bad way. But literally we haven't had a single response like that to date, and hundreds of people that have done it. It's incredible. They're all 4 or 5 star kind of hair on fire problems that people are experiencing. So yeah, I feel a lot of responsibility.
And so your main sort of audience, your customers for this are high school students?
So actually we've sort of moved to, I guess, one part of the challenge that I faced was that I realised that we could actually serve and help young people with, from 15 through to 25, and we were attracting people across all of those ages. So that became So
you're attracting people from 15, and how are they finding out about you? How are you reaching them?
Yeah.
That's one of the hardest things to do as a startup founder is like, okay, got this amazing problem that I want to solve. It's hard, but how do we even introduce this concept that no one's even thought of before to new people?
Definitely. A lot of it began with me getting up on stage with a microphone and sharing my story, and really organically that became the most effective way for me to grow my network and audience. And
so what do you mean, just out in public, just with a microphone, just shouting at people?
Essentially. Did a number of things to begin with. I did do a TED Talk. That was outside my comfort zone for sure, but has been an incredible growth lever actually ever since then.
Wow.
And I did a lot of public speaking at schools and whatnot, and that sort of built our base. And I think once you've got that initial community, that's when it becomes easier to scale. But sometimes finding those first 100 people is actually the hardest part. So now that we've kind of got that and have continued to engage them, that's where the potential then comes to actually scale that into something bigger. So it's been, I think with this lost button kind of concept, it's been awesome because it just grows really organically, and also because we're doing it for free. So that, and there's sort of reason behind that too, but I think people kind of feel this sort of indebtedness to then give back in some way, and they do share that then ends up being by telling other people about it, and that natural kind of traction.
Yeah, no, there's definitely, if you can find a novel approach to solving a problem which a lot of people have, or at least have niggling in the back of their mind, and then they discover this amazing solution which takes that pain away or makes them feel good about what they're doing in their life or something. Same as push-up challenge, I suppose. It's hard not to tell others about it. You just want to be the person who introduces it to your friends. Yeah. And so, the old days you'd go, I want something to go viral, but it's not really about that. It's about how can you help as many people as possible, because if they experience that solution, all they're going to want to do is share it. Yeah. Nick, is that what's happened with Push Up Challenge? It has, because there's certainly an element of virality to what you do. You encourage people to create content, to film themselves doing the push-ups, to share it in their network. But what else are you doing to make sure that you're pushing that out to as wide an audience as possible?
Yeah, so we try to keep the event as accessible and as fun as possible. So you mentioned, Liz, that what you're part of is free, and that's obviously makes it a lot easier for people to get involved. And I know at the Push-Up Challenge we always want the event to be free to allow people to get involved. But I think the key to us doing so well, and certainly in our future, is having it having the event remain fun, which is quite challenging, as I mentioned before. It's a heavy subject.
Yeah. So in what ways are you making it fun? What are you doing to keep that sort of excitement around it?
We've got we encourage people to have fun with it. So we've got our push-ups of the day, which we celebrate, and the language that we use in our brand is fun as well. Again, there's a challenge of you want to be fun but not disrespectful, and it is hard. We've got I occasionally get approached by people who lost someone to suicide in the year that we're focusing on. So for instance, this year's target was 3318 push-ups, which represents the 3318 people 3318 Australians who took their own lives in 2019. 2019 being the last year of available data, and occasionally I come into contact with someone who knew one of those 3,318 people, and having those chats with them it can be, well, first of all, extremely moving, and I'm quite lucky that we've toned it a certain way, in that when they come to me with their story of their brother or their mother or their mate that took their own life, that we're able to have like a meaningful conversation that isn't completely dark. Sure, there's a dark element, but there's a fun thing in there as well, or a respectful sort of joyful part of it, in that we're able to open up these discussions which normally are quite hard to have.
I think one of the uplifting things about the Push-Up Challenge, as well as the content that gets created, is by the participants. And so, you might have a team of a local police station, and all the police officers are out there doing the push-ups, or firemen, or a sports team, or AFL players on the front page of your website. And so it's hard not to feel like you're in this sort of massive community, supportive community of people who are doing it.
That's a good point. And I guess the event, it gives people a license to have fun.
Yeah.
So people are looking for maybe a reason to get out there and do something a little bit different, and the event does that. So they can get together with their local mates, the police force, or gym, or workplace, or school, etc., and have a bit of fun with it. So we've seen people dress up and do push-ups in all sorts of weird and wacky locations, and the event gives them a license to do this and to talk about something which they may not have had a mechanism to talk about before. So our event gives them a way to express themselves on social media or to their friends in conversation.
You're a bit of a numbers man, so nearly $9 million was raised this year. How many participants was that from?
So this year we had 174,000 participants, which is, last year we had 130,000. So it grew from 4,000 people in year one to 1,000 people in year two.
From 4,000 down to 1,000?
I beg your pardon. So from 4 people in year one.
Oh, 4, right.
Four people in year one, myself and 3.
So that wasn't the year that you got the letter from Tour de France, obviously.
No, Tour de France were well after that. So interesting story there. So it started off with myself and 3 mates, so 4 of us. And we were doing our push-ups, and the only way for us to track these push-ups was through this app that we found online, which allowed us to count the push-ups, but we couldn't share them. So we had to screenshot it with the counter and then put it in our little messenger chat. It was so annoying. And I was like, I reckon I can fix this. And so I jumped online and found a guy who could develop an app for us. By app, I mean a website, and it cost us about $200. And so for $200, we had this an absolute piece of shit app.
Get what you pay for, Nick.
Yeah, exactly. Well,
when it comes to software development.
So you hear about minimal viable product. This was it, right? It was a simple screen, and you go in there and you bank your push-ups, and you can see where your mates are up to. And it was, the guys loved it, and I loved it as well. I was like, oh, okay, it does that. I wonder if it can do this, and then that $200 quickly blew out to another number as we added in all these other features. So it grew from 4 guys and to 1,000 people in year two. And in year two, I was particularly proud because we had someone taking part in every state of Australia. including just one person in Northern Territory. So I could make that claim of being Australia-wide. So thank you if that Northern Territory person is listening or watching. Thank you so much for being part of it and being able to claim it as a national event in year 2. Soon after that, we realised, this Tour de France thing probably isn't sustainable. Decided to pivot it. But it was after that year that I was out in the surf one day with some mates and realised I was really unfit, and came back and long story short, I found out I had to have open heart surgery, the style where they cut your chest open and do bits and pieces, do things, and that hit me really hard. And leading up to that surgery, I distanced myself from my mates and from my family and just fell into a really heavy depression. Surgery went well, but coming out of it, I was also just depressed. Lying in beds, fair bit of pain, didn't want to see my mates or anything like that. And sitting there in bed, I'd pretty much finished Netflix by this point, and thought, well, hang on a sec, I need to do something else. So I grabbed my laptop and built the push-up challenge from there. So from up until that point, the push-up challenge was that shitty little app, which 1,000 people suffered through, and a website, a fundraising website that we use. But I thought, well, hang on a sec, our app is not talking to that website, and there's no way for them to talk at the moment. So I thought, all right, well, why don't we integrate these? Why don't we make them the same? But to do that, we'd develop our own website as well. So that began our journey, or my journey, in developing the website and the app to be integrated. So there, lying in bed, I was like, all right, well, let's grow this into something bigger. And I had a bit of time off work to get through the surgery and all that, and grew it from there. So grew it from 4 people in year 1 to 1,000 people in year 2. Then there was the surgery, and then we had 49,000 people taking part in year 3. So it really blew up.
So how did that feel when you realised that this was something that it's not just me and 4 mates that are keen on this? This is something bigger.
It was really, really cool.
Yeah,
because you with something like that, you're putting you're putting a lot of time in it. You're investing a lot of emotional energy in it.
Yeah.
And at that point too, like a lot of cash. And it's, again, something I'm really passionate about. So I found it fun. So if it died, I wasn't, it wasn't going to be the end of the world. But I was hoping it would succeed. And when we got those first signs that, well, hang on a sec, people are registering and people are donating to the cause, it was like, wow, this is really cool. And I remember the first donation that came in. It was the first person who registered, and they donated $100. And I thought, wow, this is fantastic. How good's this? Everyone's going to donate $100. Nope. The next 100 people, no one donated. I was like, oh my God, this is the worst idea ever. But stuck at it, and it grew from there. So we had 49,000 people involved in year 3, so 2019, and then grew it further, made further improvements, had a more sophisticated marketing strategy, and it grew from 49,000 in year 3 to 130,000 people in year 4 last year. So so it was just like massive growth and a lot of effort to get there. And then this year, we grew it again from 130,000 to 174,000, which I'm just super proud of. To put that into perspective, I tell some of my mates this who haven't done the challenge. Yes, I'm still mates with them even though they haven't done the challenge. And they're like, oh yeah, that's cool, Nick. That's cool. And I think it's easy to lose sight of those numbers. And to put it into perspective, like Movember in Australia have about 100,000 participants. In Dry July, have about...
It's way harder to grow a moustache, though, than to do 5,000 push-ups.
For some of us, you've seen my moustache. So, and Dry July have about 40,000. Obviously, both amazing events that contribute a lot to very worthwhile causes. But when you put it into perspective, it's like, wow, okay, we're up there with them.
Created something that's creating some amazing impact, mate.
Yeah. So we're quite surprised and stoked by the growth we've seen over the last 5 years.
Liz, you're a few years behind, but you will have a similar sort of impact, I know, with what you're doing and the sort of commitment and just sort of focus of what you're doing with Purposeful. What could possibly be next? What does the future hold for what you're doing?
Great question. I think where I'm focused, my vision has always been to create, a business that is scalable, sustainable, and purposeful. And I think for us, we're always like chasing purpose and doing things very intentionally and making sure that you're not just jumping at the thing that's going to make you money quick, but actually like trying to solve a really systemic problem. So I want Purposeful to be something that at any time when you're feeling lost, like in your life, that you can fall back to us and find to redirect towards a path you're passionate about.
And hit the lost button.
You hit the lost button. And I'm sure that, the mechanics of what that looks like will continue to evolve. But yeah, that's our vision. And so I think I met someone the other day who sort of admitted straight up, they were like, yeah, this thing that I want to do, it's going to take me 10 years to do it, like at least. And I certainly feel that way about what we're doing, that a lot of forces are against us, but now is also a really critical time for change in education in particular. And hopefully we can actually, be something that every young person, when they leave, like this is your first step out of school is Purposeful. So
amazing.
Which has been super exciting. I think there's some really innovative things happening in the edtech and online space that people previously wouldn't have thought possible. Like the idea that you can scale like a live cohort-based program, and you can do that really successfully. So that's definitely what we're looking at, and seeing how we can be ahead of instead of spending lots of money building up content in a future of work and life when no one really can be the expert on what's coming next. How can we kind of actually co-create and co-design solutions with young people as they're going through them, and be more competitive that way? So.
I've heard that people tend to overestimate what they can accomplish in a year, but significantly underestimate what they can do in 10 years. And I think that's a particular struggle in the startup space. You're like, I want to do all these things, and they're super optimistic, and you have to be to get through this, right? Through the valley of despair. It's like, all right, I can do all these things in a year, and inevitably you don't. You might achieve great things, but maybe not as much as what you wanted to achieve. But you still do good things. But if you keep at it, like what can be achieved over 10 years can be amazing. So I think that first year in particular, the first few years in particular, can be a real struggle. Yeah.
Awesome. One big piece of advice to any founders starting out, either of you?
Mine would be just keep showing up, like that. Exactly what you were just touching on. That I think that is how you become successful. Is literally every day, like despite the mistakes that you make, in spite of the mistakes that you make, right? Like continuing to show up. That was
Warren Buffett's line. Was the number one rule of being in business is staying in business.
Exactly, and sticking on purpose.
Yep. Anything to add to that, Nick?
Just fail.
Yep.
Fail is
like Textie.
Yeah. So fail hard and fail early. Just keep on, just keep at it. Work out something that doesn't work, learn from it, and then move to the next thing. And you see, if you're an adult, you're probably pretty good at certain things in life. And when you try something new, you're probably going to suck at it, right? You're probably going to be absolutely atrocious at it. And it's just getting through that initial phase and making mistakes, failing, learning from it, and then moving on to the next thing. So fail hard and fail early.
So we never quite got to the end of the Textie story and why it doesn't exist and why you're not all using it today. And after we did the lap around the globe and had 20, 30,000 users on it or whatever it was pretty simple really. We realised that teenage girls don't have any money or a credit card, and so we couldn't turn it into a business. And so that kind of wrapped up.
Yeah, we struggled with revenue.
Yeah.
We struggled with time as well.
Even the product was 99 cents and they still didn't want to pay. So we definitely didn't think about that. Okay, one last thing that we do with Weird Growth is a quick show and tell of the device, tool, toy thing which makes your life better that you can't live without at the moment.
Mine is Airtable.
Oh, love Airtable.
As someone who cannot code, Airtable and its many integrations are incredible.
Yep.
And Notion, but
yep.
And I think I have to give credit to someone in the audience for this one, but Super, which is a super startup that essentially turns your Notion pages into websites. So yeah, love it.
So good. So Airtable is just like a super fancy online Excel / Trello board / note-taking tool, which just does it all, and it's really hot, and it integrates with a lot of different things. What about you, Nick?
Wow. Okay. I'm going to have to learn about that one. It sounds like a good one.
You've not heard of Airtable?
I haven't used it.
Oh, mate, get on it.
Yeah, I'll have to get on it. The one thing that's keeping me, one thing I'm really excited about at the moment, what have I just started using? Nothing too exciting. I'm listening to another podcast other than Weird Growth at the moment.
You're kidding.
I know. So when I'm not listening to Weird Growth, I listen to How I Built This podcast, which is pretty good.
Awesome.
One day it'll be as good as Weird Growth, but I know there's a
How I
couple
Built This is absolute gold. Yeah.
Jira. Does people here use Jira much as a tool? Oh, it's pretty dry, isn't it? But that's
there's a few nerds nodding their head in the audience. Yeah.
That's something I'm pretty excited about. That's how boring my life is. I'm getting excited about Jira at the moment, so that's all I've got.
Well done. Final plug and product ask, or if any, what can anyone who's interested in Purposeful do to get involved? Or do they just press the
check out the lost button, but not all at once.
And we're out of time. Sorry, guys. That's it. No, let's go.
And if you know any schools or young people that are feeling a bit lost, then let me know.
So school teachers, principals, high school,
any and all, we're hustling.
Send them your way.
Yes.
Perfect.
The push-up challenge, it occurs once a year in June.
Oh, you have to wait till next year now.
Yeah. So if you air this podcast in May next year, that'd be perfect. But look, if you're interested in getting more involved in mental health, there are a number of great charities out there. So I encourage you to get into it. There's two proven sources or ways of getting happy in the world. Apparently, one of them is dancing. And the other one is volunteering. So get out there, and if you're not involved in Push-Up Challenge, that's cool. But I recommend you get out there and volunteer for an organisation which you're passionate about.
If you've got beer, that's one way of getting happy as
well. Yeah,
well,
that's the third one on that list.
So the cool thing about doing this live, thank you guys, great answers, and we'll make sure that all those links are in the show notes. But the cool thing about doing this live is we have an audience, which means we can actually ask live questions of the audience. So we've got Kai here with a roaming microphone. Kai's a professional MC as well. So hello, Kai. Thank you.
That's definitely a lie, but...
well, you get paid to be an MC, so that means you're a professional MC. Who's got some questions for the panel? Rob.
How many times have you been asked to do push-ups live?
I'll assume that question's for me. Many. It's the ongoing joke.
All right. We've got 3 camera angles here, Nick.
I'm broken.
You must have pecs of steel, though, mate.
They're getting that. Oh, I'm good.
I
get what was the name of? We get all sorts of interest in the push-up challenge. A lot of ambassadors there as well. There's one who was the original bachelor. What's his Australian bachelor? Oh no, okay, yeah, maybe it was someone. Anyhow, so Tim.
I don't know what it is.
Tim Robards,
Yes.
Is he the original one or one? Anyhow, I did a thing with him recently, and my team are like, Nick, you're going to do this live Instagram thing with Tim Robards, and of course, I pretended to not know who that was, and then I looked him up, and oh my god, this guy is super buff, and Nick, you have to do some push-ups alongside this guy, and I was like, nope, look at this guy's ripped. So I get asked all the time.
Oh.
Good question.
This is probably for both of you, but what do you think has been the most rewarding from both of your little startups?
Yeah. Definitely for me, it's like now when I used to have a lot of conversations with people when they were lost, because they kind of would come to me, I guess, and not have something to actually help them with. Like, there's nothing that I can actually point them to. So it's like very cool now to be able to point people to that. One of the coolest parts, I think, has just been like growing my team and actually like having other people grow that idea. Like that's one of the coolest types of growth is suddenly when other people are passionate about what you do and driving that. And even a few days ago, like one of my team like basically like sort of landed us this gig and like negotiated and all this stuff, and I was like, she did a way better job than I would have done. Like that's a really rewarding feeling to see other people kind of bring it to life.
Someone said being a startup founder is a bit like being a cult leader.
Oh yeah,
like,
it is.
You need to convince people to believe in your crazy vision and jump into the abyss with you, not knowing what's going to happen.
So it's kind of, it's scary when people do, but at the same time it's so cool because it's just awesome motivation to actually like keep going and keep them on board.
Yeah, so when your team's better than you at something, it's actually quite cool. And you're like, righto, thank God they don't depend on me for that, and they're better than me. But in the push-up challenge, what's quite rewarding are the stories we hear. So we get the occasional, the peak of the event will be contacted over 1,000 times in a day with people asking questions, and some of those are positive feedback things, and those stories are quite beautiful. I think one of the best things about being in a sort of startup space and having your own thing, for me, is the ability to create something and having that flexibility to go, right, I'm going to try this. So having that creativity, I find having that sort of license or that canvas to be creative, that's really cool. Yeah.
Good question. One down the back.
Hey guys. So you both touched on mental health and putting aside some time for yourself, and you've just created some absolutely cracker ideas and brought them to life. So in the birthing stages of both your ideas and now, what do you guys do to keep yourselves mentally and emotionally in check?
It's a really important question and topic. I think the reality of it is, like for me, it's sort of come in waves. Like you will have times when you do just have to hustle, for better use of the word, and get it done, and that often does lead to burnout. And we actually literally just recorded a podcast episode on burnout today, and it's something that we're all going through. I think I also just have to unsubscribe sometimes to like the expectations and pressures, particularly in the startup scene. Like there's just this really unrealistic narrative of growth often that is not really sustainable for a lot of people, and like being able to take a step back from that and it is really important. And actually I think for me, having a really clear purpose and intention behind what I do makes it easier to do that. I think if I was just doing it for money, it would be a lot harder, but I still definitely keep grounded in like my friends and my family and taking time out for me, because I know that the business can't live if I'm not looking after myself. So sort of like it's a non-negotiable to look after yourself, I think. Yeah,
it's hard. Like in the event space, you have to perform. I remember with our app, so we developed a new app for this year, and a week before the event was due to start, the app stores pulled it. They pulled the app. They said it's not valid on the stores. What do you do with that? The pressure we were under was immense. We got the app back on the store. I'm not sure when it came online. I think it was a few days before the event. And right up to that point, we're like, we've got an app. It'll be available really soon. And you're going through all sorts of stress. With the push-up challenge, my mates often joke about it, because we like the part of the push-up challenge, we're telling all these like mental health stories. We're educating people about mental health and how you need to eat properly and what you should eat and how you should sleep and the rest of it. Meanwhile, people behind the event, we're not sleeping. We're not eating. We're eating pizza and whatnot. So it can be very hard. But when you're part of something so meaningful, so purposeful, it keeps you going. And you hear these stories of like people like winning lottery, quitting their jobs, and they end up going back to work in some fashion, like maybe not straight away, but they end up like volunteering or doing something else because they want to have that meaning in life. And having a purpose in life is obviously really important, and working provides that purpose. When you've got your own startup, that's just working on steroids. It's like right.
People say don't want to do a 9 to 5, but it's like, well, it's like a 24/7.
Yeah. It's
Like
unrelenting.
really is,
If you any other occupation, if it wasn't yours, and your boss asked you to work, well, I know at my peak this year it was 16-hour days for like months on end. No one's going to get me to work that many hours other than me from something I'm really passionate about. So striking that balance can be hard, but I find having that purpose and being part of something you're really passionate about, whether it's your own thing or something else, that helps you get through it.
Thank you, guys. Really important conversations this evening, and thank you to the audience for the great questions. Nick Hudson from Push Up Challenge, thank you so much for joining us on Weird Growth tonight.
My pleasure.
Elizabeth Knight from Purposeful and the Lost Button podcast. Really appreciate you giving up your time and being here with us. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Jack, our head of community at Ammo and our amazing Weird Growth podcast producer. Great job tonight, mate. Thank you, Manny. Thank you, Louis, Terrace Loft team for hosting us in the secret East Perth warehouse location. It's been a blast, actually. I've really enjoyed it tonight. This is we definitely have to do this again, actually. So thank you, everyone, for coming along. There's still more beer and pizza. And thank you, everyone out there in podcast and YouTube land, for listening to Weird Growth. Really appreciate you making it through to the end of this episode. Please do subscribe and review if you're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, whatever it is. Thank you very much. Please do give us a rating and leave a review. Thanks a lot. Thanks for listening to Weird Growth. I'm Cam Sinclair. Bye-bye. Nicely done.